Welcome back. I am Rudy Knapp, and this is Legacy Build Your Kingdom. Today, I have one of those topics that I know will be a little touchy for people. I know because you probably relate to it. If you have children that play sports, I'm going to guess that some things might trigger a nerve, but I believe in the concept of understanding the bigger picture. I have witnessed many different examples of this just this past weekend, tons. Conversations, things that I've witnessed that come back to this concept of parents in sports. We're going to get into that because I have a lot to say. I have a lot of experience with coaching throughout my entire life. I think I started coaching at the age of 19. I coached wrestling, took over a program from my uncle, ran the program for 5, 6, 7 years. I can't remember how long. I also coached football for youth when I didn't have kids at 19, 20, 21 years old. I was involved in youth sports. I've also been a camp counselor growing up. As one of my first jobs, I was the one that ran a day camp program with 100 plus students, or campers, as you would say, from all ages, from 3 all the way up to 14 years old. I have been involved in youth sports and youth people throughout my entire career, along with being a teacher my entire career, along with coaching after I had kids, along with the last 10 years of my life. So, a lot of this goes back into experiences and seeing what actually is happening out there. And when I look at it, I can connect this a little bit to what we just spoke about last week in our podcast, going back into this idea of a couple things. Number one, a few weeks ago, we talked about habits, and then we got into unconditional love, and then we got into mirror partners or challenging someone. So I'm going to be here to challenge parents today, and I'm going to be challenging parents that have athletes. And so you might not hear something that you want to hear, but I hope that you open your mind and you have a little bit of perspective that says, hey, listen, maybe some of this is right, and maybe you disagree with some of this, and that's okay. But unconditional love is one thing that you should have for your children. And in order to have unconditional love, you have to realize that you're not unconditionally loving your child if they do not succeed at your expectations in the field of sports. This idea of habits that we talked about from a few weeks ago is, what does that mean to you? Does that mean their habits have to win? Does that mean that you have to create habits for them to be a good person, their character, good athlete? What does that mean for you? Now, before I get into all that, I just want to go back and say something. When I look at this big picture of what parents do in sports, and I'm going to give you a bold statement right now, they are ruining sports. Along with our society, they are ruining sports. And the good parents that go out and understand the concept of sports, they are creating better people. They are creating a well-rounded child that is going to help them in life. Because let's go back to the reason why sports exist. We look at today's world is way different than, myself growing up or sports when they originally started. The idea was always to build life lessons. It was always to have fun and compete. This is the problem that we have today with our youth. They don't know how to win properly, and they don't know how to lose properly. And that is our society problem. We put money on the line, and that becomes an issue because parents are looking for money. That becomes an issue because kids are looking for money. You have this concept of paying high school athletes money to be top performers, and you have top knowledge or top tier college players earning money when the process was always supposed to be for them to learn as they go until you get to the pros. Right now, we're investing in the pros at the age of 10. We're looking at our own kids and saying, if we invest now, they're going to make millions later. And we're putting pressure, and we're taking away the purpose of this idea of what sports are supposed to be for your kids. What life lessons are you teaching when you decide to say, hey, this is all about winning, this is all about money, this is all about getting something, accolades, getting a trophy, all these things? The message that you're saying is nothing else seems to matter. You're also saying, I'm disappointed in you with my reaction to you if you don't succeed. So instead of mom and dad love me unconditionally, now mom and dad love me conditionally if I do well. Because they're putting money into me getting trained. They're sending me around the world so that I get the best trainings. I get pitching lessons. I get softball camps. I get football competitions from going down to Florida, and I wrestle across the entire nation. I go to Fargo and wrestle. These things can exist, and no one is telling you that. Now, let me give you a disclaimer here. I'm not saying that I didn't go through some of this hardship as a parent as well. Once you have your own kid, it's a hard thing to watch is you want the best for your child. You want your child to compete at the highest level if you know their capability. You also want them to be successful because you don't want your child to hurt. But I know my personal experience started when once I had a kid that was in the sports that I played, football and wrestling, competition was huge. And I'm competitive. We all like to win. Everybody does. And no one's saying that you shouldn't want to. But the concept becomes is this: when you get involved in a program that has the wrong expectations for your child, you adopt those things and then you become jaded. And that happened to me. I started in a program that was about win, 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 win. Everything's win. And then when your child does win, the expectation becomes you better win. And when that child wins for a long period of time and then doesn't win, guess what happens? You get upset because they're not meeting expectations. Now, what happens as a parent? You lash out to your child. You become that person that creates a negative experience for your kid. I know early on when my kid was 5 years old, competing, 5, 6 years old, I had that mentality at first, and I had to adjust and understand what are sports for us. And even when my child was still winning, one of the things that happened was I realized this is not about winning. You're 5. Who remembers what you did when you're 5? Not many people. And if you do, that's a sad life that you're standing here and you're going, hey, this was the epitome of everything he ever did was when he was 5 years old. No, it's all preparation work. It's a process. I just posted something about, my nephew wrestled this weekend, did great. I mean, the kid had a great season and wrestled great. He's a 10 times better wrestler than he was last year. And his growth and what he's done in this sport is what his true medal is. It's what his true win is, his success. What he's done from the beginning to the end of this year, whether he gets a trophy or not. He took 7th in state. That means he's the 7th best wrestler at his weight in the state of Illinois. Which also means, great, good for him. He's not number 1. And that goes back to this concept of saying, why do we think our kids should have to be number 1? If they train for it, they work for it, and it falls into place, great. But here's a reality check as I hold up a mirror to you parents out there. Your child is not elite. You do not have a child that is elite. Now, I'm going to say that with the understanding that there are only handfuls of people that are elite. We all want to believe our kids are elite. They're a good wrestler. They're a great football player, or they're this and they made this team and they did this and they won first here. Great. You could be a state champion in wrestling and not be elite. Elite doesn't mean that you did something and did some greatness one time. Elite means that you do it all the time. Elite means that you're above and beyond everybody else. Let's throw it out there. Michael Jordan, elite, right? In basketball, I mentioned this weekend to somebody, and I said, in basketball, since Michael Jordan played since the 70s, all the way till this day, there's probably only a handful of elite people. Now, people will argue that, and that's okay. But if you're going to stand here and tell me people like Kevin Durant, who's a great basketball player, is elite, you're wrong. Because elite means you're better than everybody else. There's probably players in the NBA. I don't follow it because I can't stand the NBA. But as you look into it, there are great players. And no one's saying they're not great. There are great wrestlers or great players or great basketball players. People are great. That doesn't mean they're elite. So when we talk about elite, we talk about above and beyond Michael Jordan. There's nobody in his category. There's Magic Johnson, and there's Larry Bird, and there's Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. There's certain people that people will always say are elite, and that's okay. We understand that. People will mention LeBron, these other things, but here's the thing. Those categories, that category is elite. Our kids, unless you have one of those phenom kids that go through, they're not elite. Just because they win something doesn't mean they're elite. You're spending thousands and thousands of dollars on them to get training so that why? Parents ruin sports for children by shifting the focus from fun to winning, creating high pressure environments that lead to 80% of the children quitting by the age of 15. These toxic behaviors, they include pressuring coaches for playing time. My kid should play. My kid needs to play. He should be out there. He should be the starter. Verbal abuse to officials, screaming and yelling at referees because their kid didn't get it. Believe me, put a disclaimer out there. I've done it before when the kids were little. When it's not fair, I can't stand justice that's not fair. That's one of my things with my core values. But I've learned to control it. You can't put it in the hands of an official. But as parents, we don't want to see unjust, especially if we know it's wrong. But we can't do that. We can't scream and yell at officials. We can't go out there and say, my kid deserves. We overschedule as parents. That's a pressure, right? You're overscheduling. Your kids are doing something nonstop every single day, all day long, from this sport to that sport to this sport to working out to doing. You're overscheduling and taking fun out of it. And then you also live through your kids, which causes burnout and takes away the joy. Think about that. I'll be the first one to tell you, my kid is a better wrestler, even football player, than I ever was. For sure is. Does that mean we have the same skill set? No. Does that not mean that I wasn't more competitive than he is? I probably was. But he's at a level, at a little kid level, that's way better than I ever was. His skill level and what he does, his mental capacity, way more than me. I will never live through my child. Do I want him to win? Do I want him to be successful? Absolutely. We all do. But his true win is through the process. The biggest win for my son this year is that he decided to wrestle when it's his choice. I will never force you to do it. He made a choice for himself because he wanted to be part of something. He's in an elite class of being part of being a wrestler. Now, he's not an elite wrestler. And again, he's not an elite athlete. But he's part of a group that other people can't say they are. Only wrestlers can tell you what that sport is about. Only football players can tell you what football is about. We have too many people out here that think that they know. How many parents are sitting on the sideline and go, well, I sat in wrestling for 10 years watching my kid wrestle, so I know how to coach. And I'm going to tell the coach what he needs to do. And I'm going to go on the side of the mat and I'm going to yell for my kid. And I'm going to yell for my kid on the sidelines during football. You don't know what you're doing. You're not volunteering your time or you're not a coach. But you seem to think you are, and you can tell everybody they're doing something wrong. You're ruining sports for your kid. And what happens is we all have these experiences. We've all done things. And I've done it before and I've evolved and I'm definitely not that person anymore, ever, since he was a little kid. Now, I have people that look at my demeanor and say, hey, you're yelling at a kid. No, I have a personal relationship with my son and we talk about things after, but we talk about it in a respectful way. Nobody knows those conversations because they're not there. But my conversation with my son is this. How did you think it went? What do you think you could have done better? Do you want to hear what my opinion is? And then when I do explain it, because he does want to hear it, I tell them, well, this is something we could have fixed and this is what we can work on, but I'm never yelling at my kid. The only time I think it's acceptable for a parent to ever involve themselves in that concept without just support, constant support, is when you are standing there and you are telling your child, did you give 100%? And if you knowingly know your child did not give 100% or they quit or they gave up, that's a conversation about character, not about winning or losing. That's a conversation about we don't do that because that's not acceptable. And the fact is that those conversations come into play. We have kids that lose a match, throw a fit, and their character comes out where they're screaming and yelling or yelling at a referee or yelling at their coaches. Absolutely not. I would drag my kid off that mat. I would drag my kid off that football field, and he would not play because it's more important that he learns life and those lessons and how to be a good teammate and how to be a good person and how to accept losing and how to accept things don't go his way and how to understand that we don't act that way no matter what. And believe me, I've had my mistakes where I've acted in certain ways and I have to go back and correct those and I have to lead by example. We're not perfect, but our kids are looking to us to guide them to become great young people and grow up to be mature and to understand the idea of this is why you're involved in these things. We want you to have fun. We want you to compete. We want you to learn how to win and lose. We want you to learn that there is a process, that you're not always just going to be great. And the parents that think that their kids are great at a young age and that they can do whatever they want and say whatever they want and they don't have to do the things the teammates do and they don't have to do what the coaches say, those parents are failing. You're failing your child. And I've seen it over and over and over. And as a dad, it's very difficult to watch your kid fail. We understand that. But failure leads to success. Failure leads to learning. Failure leads to understanding what they can do better. I always told my son, those matches where you pin kids in 15 seconds, which he's had plenty of them, they meant nothing. Nothing. You learned nothing. You learned you can dominate a kid that's weaker, that doesn't understand the sport, and that you beat up on him. The kids that you wrestled, that you had to battle out, that you lost a match by 1 or 2 or a close good match, or you won by 1 or 2, those are learning lessons. The losses created so much more success in your process. You know, when we take away joy from our kids because we think they deserve, because we think they're elite, we ruin sports for them. Get out of the mentality, parents. Get out of thinking that your kid's going to be the next pitcher in the major leagues and putting them in every single pitching lesson. Now, I'm going to say this. There's always disclaimers to things. There are kids out there that truly want all of the things. They want to go to every competition. They want to be part of certain things. But most kids want to just have fun. If you do come across a child that does want, and it's not your want, you're not living through them, it's their want. They're begging you to go wrestle somewhere. They're begging you to go play somewhere or join a team or do this or do that or work out. Then you weigh your options in your life. I mean, you weigh the concept of saying, hey, this is my child and this is what they want for their life and this is going to benefit them as a person and get better. Cool. I'm all for it. The difference is that it doesn't always come from the child. It comes from the parents pushing and pushing. This weekend, I witnessed in the IKWF wrestling tournament, I witnessed a dad, after his kid came back up the stairs to sit in the stands and lost the match, screaming and yelling at his child. I mean, screaming and yelling, you should have done this, and why didn't you do this, and you know better to do this. And I mean, what did that kid think? What did you do to that kid? You demoralized his confidence. You have no support for your own kid. You know what my conversation was to my nephew? It was this. You have the ability to go out and compete with a healthy body. You were given the right by God Himself to be healthy enough to go compete and have fun and play in a sport. So win or lose. So no matter what happens, doesn't matter if you don't finish where you want to finish with the medal you want. The kid took 7th in state. But no matter how that ended, the idea was it doesn't matter because you owe it to God and you owe it to yourself to give 100% when you walk out on that mat, whenever you play a sport, whenever you do something. Because guess what? The kid that was wrestling right before your match had no legs. He had no legs from the knee down. Think about that. He had a nub on his hand. And he's competing in the state championships in all of Illinois. You have no legs from the knees down. You have a nub on your hand. And you're good enough to make the state tournament. That's how good that kid still was. And he wrestled one of a former teammate. And he lost. But he went out there to compete. That kid has every challenge in life amongst him. That kid has every challenge every day. He has to put on prosthetic legs when he gets off a mat just to walk. He has advantages on the mat, but he has a lot of disadvantages, way more disadvantages on a mat. You have no weight on your lower half. You can't lock your legs around somebody, right? You don't have the ability to stand. So when we look at that, and God gives you an opportunity to go compete, to go out there and wrestle, or go out there and play football, or go out there and play tennis, or go play volleyball, or go do something. As parents, what we should be having is a conversation like this. You have the ability to be healthy enough to go compete and enjoy teammates, become a good person, improve your character, to Understand to follow rules from your coaches, to be coachable, and to not cry and complain when things don't go your way. To understand they're not going to go your way. I told my nephew, you could be the best you ever been. You could put in all the work because he is one of the hardest working kids I've ever met in my life. And your best still might not be enough. There are sometimes elite athletes that are there that you are not going to be better than. And you have to accept my best when I walk out there. 100%, thanks to God, I can give 100%. And I could walk off that mat saying I gave everything I can and it still didn't go my way. You still have the ability to compete. That's what raises good people. That's what raises good kids. That's what sports are supposed to be about. Sportsmanship. Understanding. I'm still going to shake his hand even if it didn't go in my way. I'm still going to walk off with my head up and not pout. I can be upset, I can be emotional, but I'm not going to stand there and put on a scene. I'm not going to throw my headgear. I'm not going to yell at the referee. I'm going to act like a young man that I'm supposed to be or a young woman that I'm supposed to be. The process is where you win. The process is raising a young man or young woman throughout sports. That's why I coached. That's why when my conversations with kids had never been about winning and losing. Yes, we're going to mention we lost, and these are some reasons why. We're going to coach them up. But my end of the game speeches, my conversations with kids individually, every single one on my teams, my football teams, my wrestling, was never about sports. It was about them and their growing and what they're successful at and their confidence in who they are and how they're going to give 100% and how they have it in them to be the best they can be. This is what parents should be talking about. And you can guide your kids in sports. Yes, you can understand, you can guide them and you can say, hey, like this, here's some strategy, here's some things. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. But yelling at your child and living through your child and expecting them to do well so they can get a scholarship and do all these things, you're investing. And I've heard that conversation, that argument. I'm investing in my child to go to a Catholic school and pay $18,000 a year so that when they're done in high school, they get the better athletic, the better coaches, and then they get a scholarship and then they can go and they can make money, all this stuff. You just made your child's success based on money. I understand it's an investment. I get it. I'm a realist. If your child's at that level and understands that he's that good to create good, go for it. But the fact is, if he doesn't get it, who are you as a parent? Because your modeling as a parent will model what those kids are going to be as parents themselves. So these key ways that parents are going to ruin sports is, again, entitlement mentality. They believe their child deserves every special treatment, more playing time, or specific positions. My kid is the starting quarterback. Or they blame coaches for being unfair. Shit coaches. Oh, these coaches are against my kid. Oh, I'm volunteering my time, but I'm against your kid. I'm here for years and years and years helping your child, and you're not. You're not volunteering your time, and you have no respect for me. What kind of parent, what kind of mentality is that? You have an entitlement mentality thinking your kid is elite and he's not. Sideline aggression, embarrassing your child by yelling at referees, the coaches, even your kid, other players, creating a toxic environment, stressful environment. You become the problem because your insecurities for yourself. Stop living through your child. Stop expecting him to be the number one and that he can't make mistakes because you're the problem. You know, like you said, overly investing and overly scheduling, putting your child in every possible thing, treating them like it's a high-stake investment, understanding that this elite status is at 8 years old, 9 years old, 10 years old, even 12 years old, even high school. You know, this burnout that you're creating for your kids. What about constant criticism? Always yelling at your kid, always telling them their shortcomings, never positive reinforcement. You know, killing your kid's love for the game. And then living through your child, right? This ambitions, well, I was this, so you got to be better, or you need to be this, so I can brag to my friends and tell them how great my kids are. Because if they fail, now I look like a failure. Are you kidding me? I'm not a failure if my kid doesn't win first. I'm a failure if my kid acts like an asshole. I'm a failure if I don't take care of and implement the things that he should get through. Understanding that his coaches are trying to build character and understanding I'm reinforcing it. My job as a parent at home is to build that character, to understand how to be and behave the right way. Understanding that you have a privilege to play sports. You have a privilege. God gave you the ability to do it. You have a privilege. And then undermining coaches. I mean, I just said it a second ago. I've listened and I had examples over the weekend. I have other things. These people, these parents, no appreciation, no skill set, never played a sport before, but then they can tell you exactly what to do, their opinion. You know what I did? This is the first year I did not coach my kid in football or wrestling. Not one word out of my mouth to their coaches said anything about what they should do or what he should be doing or that they need to do. Not one word. I have coached him his entire life until high school, till this year. Do you know what my conversations are? Thank you so much. Thank you for volunteering your time. Even if you get paid, I don't give a shit. You're still putting yourself out there so that you can support my kid in growing and becoming the best he can be. Thank you. I trust in you. If I saw something inappropriate, that's different. But because you're out there doing your very best for my son, while I get to be dad and sit in the stands and watch, my whole goal was to get him to high school so he can separate from me and do the best he can do under other people coaching him. It hurts to watch because I want to help. I want to be there. And I know my kid better than most people. But it doesn't mean that I don't support them. You can ask his football coaches. You can ask his wrestling coaches. I just had a conversation yesterday with the head wrestling coach at his school. Thank you so much. My kid joined and he loves it. He made a personal choice to do it, not me. I'm not living through him. If he chose not to wrestle again, I'm still going to love my kid. I always live by, what's the worst case scenario? What's the worst case scenario? You go out and wrestle and you lose every match? Okay. You lost every match. Guess what? You're still going to come home. We're still going to love you. Unconditional love. What's the worst thing that can happen to you? You're embarrassed? Okay. We're all going to be embarrassed at times. It's called being humble. The humility comes into play at times. We're going to get embarrassed. It's a life lesson you have to learn. What's the worst thing that can happen to you? You don't make the team? You went out and you tried and you gave 100%. What is the worst thing that can happen? I tell this to parents all the time. I've had these conversations to family members. What's the worst thing that can happen? Because realistically, there's a law of averages. The worst thing's not going to probably happen, and the best thing's not probably going to happen. So somewhere in the middle, it probably will. And maybe the stars align and things happen and you get to the best case scenario, and that's great. No one says you can't have goals to strive for the best. Don't get me wrong here. You want to be a state champion, you want to be the Super Bowl winners, then you strive as a unit to do that. You strive as an individual to do that. You put in the work 100% because you owe it to God, you owe it to yourself. But if you don't get to that point, the disappointment doesn't come. You can feel emotion, you can feel certain things, but the disappointment it shouldn't come from not getting to that. It should be an acceptance of understanding. Look at how far I've come. And I gave 100%. The problem we have is kids don't give 100% because parents take that from us. Parents put so much pressure on us, guess what? I didn't succeed. I didn't do. So how can I stand here and how can I sit there and say to myself that I'm successful if my parents are disappointed in me? You build people up. The whole point of this podcast, again, is to build your kingdom. You represent your kingdom. Your kids are in your kingdom. The fact that you are a parent in sports and you take that from them, you're not building them up, you're knocking them down. So I'm holding that mirror up to you one more time. Get over yourself. Sit your ass in the stands and cheer your kid on, win or lose. Support them. You want to bring them to every tournament? Cool. Bring them everywhere you want to go. Go across the world. If that's supportive in your life, great. You want to look at your finances and see if you can afford it? Good. I'm a personal parent that says, unless my kid's banging down the door to do certain things, I'm not doing that for him. He has to make choices. My daughter has to make choices. But if it's something they truly want, there's something they truly put their heart into, they truly want to get better at, they truly want to work at, let's work on it and see if we can afford it. And if we can't, sorry, but you're allowed to say no. You can compete here locally. We don't need to go on a trip every weekend. Those parents are unbelievable to me, and good for them. If they have the finances and that's what their kids want, great. If that's what they want for their kids, if their kids want it, great. If it's only them that wants it, that's a problem. You're ruining that for that kid because you're forcing them to do things and you're forcing those times. Now, is there good things and bad things? Sure. You get family vacations, you get time together, but what happens when it's so competitive you take all that fun out of it? You know, these unrealistic expectations and pressure, this obsession with elite status, as we talked about before, these year-round sports, they're always going to wrestle, they're always going to travel. They're going to lead to like physical like injury. It's going to lead to this burnout for sure. Now, if your kid's banging down that door, that's a little different story, right? What about financial stress we just talked about? You're going to put yourself in debt to go sit in a hotel every weekend because baseball tournament is every weekend, every which way? Or you're going to be able to work that out. If it's in your finances, great. I'm not here to judge you. What I'm here to say is if you're putting financial stress on your family so they can perform in every weekend and you don't know how to say no to your child, what are you teaching your kid? Think about the precaution or the permanent issues that are going to come into play when you say yes to every little thing. When it's your family life is being put at jeopardy. Think about that. It's okay to say no. And then that whole car ride home post game critiquing and interrogation, it takes away that encouragement. These kids will dread it. There was a great thing I saw a long time ago, and they talked about how you know the kid would get in the car with the parent on the way home after a sporting event. The parent said, "You know what?" They set up a rule because the parent always wants to give their opinion afterwards. I do. I always want to. I want to coach because I've coached him his whole life. But if it's unwanted from your child, you have to have a respect that there is a difference between the dad role and the coaching role. And there's a difference between mom and, mom supporting you and mom being upset with you and these certain things. Like you have to have a role, right? So if you're coaching as a mom and you have to have that separate too, right? So let's just say dad role versus athlete versus being a coach. So the guy would get into the car and he would say, if the kid took his hat and turned it backwards, he doesn't want to listen to the speech. Or if you turned on the radio, if the kid turned on the radio, he doesn't want to listen to the speech. So you just become dad and supportive. If he doesn't turn on the radio or he turns his hat forward, guess what? I'm open to hearing what you have to tell me, Dad. I want to know what you think as a coach or as what you saw as a dad. There is a difference between dad and coach. You should never be coach on the sideline if you're a dad, unless you are part of his coaching world. If you're just a dad in the stands, you should never become that coach as soon as he's done with whatever he's competing in or she's done competing. You have to wait till the whole event is over, and then it has to be approved. Have some respect for your kid. Give encouragement. Respect the fact that maybe he doesn't want to hear it. Respect the fact that you're causing damage if you're forcing it. So what are these impacts on these kids? The loss of fun we talked about. Fun is the motivation most of the time. Sports like wrestling that aren't very fun, the fun comes from showing success or growing or actually winning at times, but it's replaced, that fun is replaced by that pressure from parents, and they don't want to compete anymore because they don't want to let their parents down. You're creating impact on your child for years to come in therapy. My dad never went to my sporting events. If my dad did go, he yelled and screamed. If my dad was standing there after a match, I got screamed at and yelled at, and I got lectured every single time. It's interesting because people will have different perspectives, but if you're openly in public doing it, hey, you made those choices. What about, about 70 to 80% of children quit organized sports by the age of 13 to 15. They get into high school and they quit. Probably played a sport the whole time. I told you my son was thinking about not wrestling. He made a conscious decision on his own. If I would have said, no, you have to wrestle, he would resent me. He made that choice because he wanted to be part of it still. And then this like decreased like resilience. When parents intervene to fight their child's battle with the coaches and the officials, and they miss the opportunity to build independence and coping skills. Be able to understand that you are going to have to deal with controversy. You got to talk to your coach. You got to be able to understand that you got to be respectful, to be a team player, to understand it doesn't go your way, to lose properly. You have to understand that. They have some statistics out there, and it's interesting. Like, what are these statistics for the reasons why kids quit? Well, it's no longer fun. It's 45% of kids that quit. It's no longer fun. That's almost half. Why do you think it's no longer fun? Either you create an environment for them that they have to win, 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 and they're not winning, then it's no longer fun. Or you put a lot of pressure on them as parents, or their coaches did, and guess what? It's no longer fun. Now, let's not forget that when I say parents too, influences from adults. I mean, sometimes coaches are bad coaches, and everything's about win, 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 win. We've experienced it before too. And the sad part about it is like you can stand here and say win, 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 win as a coach, and guess what's going to happen? You're putting that pressure on them as well. Do you want to strive to get the best out of your athlete? Absolutely. If you're a good coach, that's what you're doing. You're not patty caking it. We're not standing here and saying, no, it's not. We want you to win. The whole point is you're competing to win. It doesn't mean that that the whole point of competition is competing to win. The whole point of sports is this concept of saying, hey, I want to get better as a person, my character, life skills, and also to have fun. And people are like, well, this isn't about fun. You're a loser if you don't. I hear so many people say this shit, all this stuff on social media. I see all these parents, I see these coaches, and they're idiots. They're just idiots. The whole point was never been about just being elite and being number one. Can you have goals? Sure. But that's not what it's always been about. So sometimes your coaches ruin it for you. Putting your kid in the proper position and the right team and the right people around them, that's part of you as parenting. And again, I started this whole career with my son in the wrong situation for 2 years in the wrong wrestling team. They had the wrong values that even to this day, I would never be in that program. And the problem is that, or what's the good part about it is I recognized it early on. And I became part of that problem because they instilled that in myself. And I learned it real quick and got out of that habit. So we have to know better for our kids. What's the best for our kids? Another statistic is, kids feeling inadequate. I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. 31% of kids quit because of that. Why? Why do you feel inadequate? Because your parents are yelling at you and critiquing you? Because you're not winning? Because you made this all about winning and losing? Instead of you get to compete? Instead of you can have fun? Instead of try to get better? Give 100%? And then injuries. 16% of kids say they quit because of injuries. Why do you think injuries occur? I'm overly worked. I'm overly scheduled. My dad has me in every pitching lesson possible. Now my shoulder is gone. I have, elbow issue. Like, think about that. So I say these things because I've experienced this so many times. I have friends that are experiencing this. I have people around me that I understand this. It's just a different mentality. You don't have to agree with me. You could be that parent that says, oh, I'm training my kid to be the greatest player ever in history. Good for you. No one's saying that you can't have goals. But if your kid doesn't want that, if your kid's not receptive to it, if your kid's not banging down your door, you're causing an issue. And if you're on the sideline screaming and yelling at your kid, then you're the problem. So here's a couple quotes that I think are really important. I'm going to leave you with here. Here's one that I found here. It says, "Children become the messages they hear most. Our athletes' parents are the voice they hear most. Every bit of work you do can be undone in minutes on the car ride home." That's really powerful. They're going to hear these messages over and over and over again. Your athletes' parents are that voice they hear the most. They hear their parents talking to them the most. If you're giving them positive reinforcement, you're encouraging them, they lose and you're still understanding that, hey, we still need to keep working, or you give positive reinforcement instead of telling them everything they did wrong. That's the message they're going to hear, right? You're yelling at them. You're telling them what they did wrong. That's the message they're going to hear. It says, here's another quote: youth sports coaches have to put up with so much whining, moaning, and nagging. And that's just from the parents. Honest to God truth. Parents ruin a lot of good things that are happening. Here's another one. Your child's success or lack of success in sports does not indicate what type of parent you are. But having an athlete that is coachable, respectful, a great teammate, mentally tough, resilient, and try their best is a direct reflection of your parenting, character building, behavior. That's what you're supporting. That's what you want. That's what you want reinforcement from your coaches. You are going to be judged based on your child's behavior. That's just life. How they act in school, how they act when you're not there, how they act in sports after they lose. That's on you. I'm sorry, I'm going to hold that mirror up. That's on you. And I'm not saying my kids are perfect because they're going to make mistakes, but it's my job to correct it and make sure it doesn't happen again. When you allow it, oh, well, my kid's just a free spirit and my kid just, he does things on his own and he does, no, then he shouldn't be part of a team. No, that's not acceptable. You have to step in for those character parts, not about the actual sport. And it's interesting because people will argue this and think that they're not it. And that's why we went back to mirror partners, right? Challenge your person, look in the mirror. The best thing in life is to look in the mirror. You have people that are probably listening to this that are say, no, that's not true, or that's not me. But truthfully, it probably is you. And truthfully is, if it isn't you and you're one of these people that support your kid, great job. I mean, absolutely great job. Because I see some great parents that understand what this means. And I see a lot of parents that will sit back and they will do the little things. And maybe you do it a little bit. And again, my disclaimer, I've done it. I've been there. I've corrected it. And I won't do it ever again. But I've been there. I remember watching Irish dance with my daughter and being able to say, this girl looks like she's the greatest thing out there and all the 10 kids that are on the stage at one time. And she takes last place. And I'm like, what is that? That's garbage. And in my brain, how could this judge go and judge them if they're looking down and writing things and they have to see 10 different kids? I don't understand the sport. So why would my ignorance come out and be able to judge and tell them what they're doing wrong or what they're doing right and be upset with the judge? I was ignorant. I was dumb. I wanted my kid to win because I thought she deserved it. Guess what? You only deserve what? Nothing. You get nothing. There's no deserving of anything. You don't ever have to play sports. God gave you the ability to play sports, and you get that opportunity because as a dad, I'm putting my money out there for the opportunity for you to experience things and become a better person. Shut your mouth and watch and compare, not judge, but go through and actually support your child. You can judge all you want in your head, you can compare all you want. Your mouth and your actions are going to show your kids. We're all going to have opinions. Come on, let's be real. I'm going to sit there and go, my daughter was the best one. I saw her. She stood up straight. She kicked better. You know, she jumped better. She was tan. She had the wig on. She did all the things. And guess what? I don't know anything about it. Just like these parents that are sitting there and pretending like they do know. And even if I did know, even if I did Irish dancing my whole life, I don't have the right to do that. My only right as a parent is to support my child and understand those. Can I ask questions? Absolutely. Should I be questioning the coaching and the officiating? No. So go back to yourself. I want you to reflect on yourself. I want you to look at yourself in the mirror and say, do I do that? Do I scream and yell when I'm in the stands? Do I do these certain things? I like to yell to my kid to try to coach him from the stands. And sometimes I catch myself, I'm like, I got to shut up. Just because I know him and I want him to do well. That doesn't mean that I'm angry at him. It doesn't mean that I'm telling the coaches they're doing something wrong. Out of respect, I make sure I'm not by the mat and yelling things because he should be listening to his coaches. But I mean, as parents, we're emotional people. We're going to stand in the stands and we're going to yell out, go Ben, shoot, turn them, let's go, get them, like these kind of things. That's okay. But we have to realize when he walks off that mat or he walks out off that competition or she does, I love you no matter what. That's all right. Go get them next time. Give 100%. Did you give 100%? There's your question. Are you lucky to compete? There's your question. Do you love this sport? There's your question. Let your children speak for themselves. Don't live through them. Learning process. right? Including myself. So I hope you take this with some sort of perspective. I hope you look at it and say, hey, the same concept goes for anything else in life. Same thing in school, same thing with teachers, same thing goes for anything else. You don't know. You're not a trained professional to be a teacher, so you shouldn't be telling your teacher what they should and shouldn't be doing. Your job is behavior. And if you have an issue with the school and behavior and your child is acting in a certain way, that's on you. That is a reflection on you. I'm sorry, but it is. If your child continuously has behavioral problems, that's on you. If there's actually a condition, then that's something that you got to work out. But if your child's coming in behavioral issues because you allow it at home or because those things exist in your school, guess what? You better take some ownership of it because that's accountability on you. There's no reason that in sports or in schools your child should act in a certain way. And if you're not taking offense to that and you're standing up for your child because your child does no wrong, you're the problem. If your child is telling the truth and those things, I understand and investigating it. If this is a common pattern, you're the problem. Be a better parent. Be more support for your kids. Realize what your goal is for your children. And if your goal for your children is for them to be the number one and be better than everybody else, then you might want to reevaluate your core values. I'm the one telling you that. And I don't like to tell that to anybody. You have your own choices, but your child is going to grow up and have that same mentality. And guess what? It's not helping our society or our world. Go through, look at yourself. Just like I can improve on things and I have to improve on things as a dad and even as a sport parent, you do as well. Look in the mirror, fix it. Try going through, and here's a challenge to you, sitting in an event where you say nothing, nothing. And the only thing you do is hug your child after they compete. Don't say anything. Don't even give positive reinforcement. Don't say negative anything. Just hug them. Or if you want to speak, ask those questions I just told you. Hey, did you have fun? Did you give 100%? Do you love playing volleyball? Those are things that you can start doing. Watch how different your child is. They're not going to compete less. They're going to want to impress more. All right. I'm leaving you with that. This is a long one. This is a very touchy subject to me, being a coach for so many years. Very touchy because I am a dad. Very touchy because I watch it ruining relationships in parents. I watch it ruining relationships with kids. I see it ruining relationships with sports and coaches and parents' relationships. Be better. Just be a better person. Build your kingdom up. Be the model. Love your kids no matter what. And remember, elite status is only for a handful of us. And I guarantee you, most of you don't have that, even if you're the best player on the team. So go forward, accept those challenges, take a look at yourself, and I hope that you have a better experience this season in whatever sport that you're in. Congratulations to my nephew, Vinny. He deserves every ability to be proud of himself because he put in the work. He is somebody that showed success through even failure. That's what this is about. He's such a great kid. He puts God first, and he's the one that shows that no matter where I place in state, no matter where my teammates place in state, I'm supportive of everyone else. And he knows that he has support from us, from his family, his parents, from me, from all of our family, because we're proud of him. Take care.